My name is Ayman Nasser. I'm the chair of the Campus Student Election Commission, and we are hosting this student trustee debate. To my right are the rest of the Campus Student Election Commission.
Hi, my name is Bayan Manasra. Oh, this is kind of low. My name is Bayan Manasra. I'm the parliamentarian at the Campus Student Election Commission. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in accounting, and we would like to welcome you all to this event here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Clary, and I am serving as the secretary on CSEC, and I'm also a third-year PhD candidate in the School of Social Work. So thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis King. I am a general member of the Campus Student Election Commission, and I am pursuing my Master's of Accounting Science. Thank you all for being here tonight.
And before I turn it over to our wonderful moderator, I'd like to tell you all that we have chips and queso from downstairs. So feel free to help yourself. There are also drinks there. And so our moderator is actually Ariel Tellis, and she will introduce herself to you, and I'll turn it over to her for the rest of the night. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day. I know it's super cold, super snowy. I don't know. Okay, it stopped. Super snowy, but we're here. All right. So again, my name is Ariel Tellis, and I am a senior here. I study political science and Portuguese. And tonight, I will be serving as the moderator for the 2019 trustee debate. All right. So we'll just get started with the rules for tonight's debate. All right. So 1, you have to abide by all time guidelines. Oh my. Okay. So, abide by all time guidelines, and you can conclude your sentence once the time is called, but nothing further. I think we need someone to check this. Gotcha. Okay. 2, keep your body language professional. 3, rebuttals are not allowed. 4, it is impermissible to talk while another candidate has the floor. 5, CSEC has the final say in the sense of what we think is respectful and professional behavior for the debate. 6, responses to the question should only be what you think as an individual, believe, suggest. It should not be about anyone else. 7, you have 3 strikes of not following the rules, and you will no longer be permitted to finish your participation in the debate. So before we start with tonight's debate questions, we will have questions from the audience. There will be index cards that are floating around, and then someone from CSEC will collect them once we're edging towards the audience question section. So, is everyone ready? I hope so. Okay, and we will start with Ali, and we will work our way down. So number 1, during your term, how do you plan to impact student and academic affairs? What are your goals? You have 60 seconds to respond.
So to work on academic affairs, we are one of the most prestigious public universities in the country. We have a phenomenal health system. We have a great school in Chicago for our hospital. We have a great dental program. And we have the creation of the first engineering-focused medical school in the country. So just continuing upon that excellence, making sure that we are taking steps forward to progress, making sure that we are making school more affordable for everyone so that we are succeeding academically.
Thank you, Ali. So, thank you for kicking the night off. But before we get to the questions, I skipped a very important part, okay? So each of you guys will have 2 minutes to introduce yourself and your platform, all right? And I'll give you a break since I started you off.
Sure.
And we'll go ahead and start with Trayshawn Mitchell.
This is just the introduction, not the question?
Yep, just the introduction.
Okay. My name is Trayshawn Mitchell. I'm the current student trustee. I've been in my position for the previous 2 years. I currently study political science and communications. I will be in the MBA program as well as the LER program next fall semester. My platform is about connecting all three universities and it means of making policies that are more catered to all three policy campuses. I know, throughout my experience on the board of trustees, I've noticed that a lot of policies that we have geared towards each university, they're not as good as it could possibly be. In terms of sexual assault, we have 3 different sexual assault policies per each campus. But if we were to look at each policy that we have that can be scaled up to a system level and actually combine and take the best of each campus, that would be a way for us to actually better all 3 of our campuses. Another goal of mine this year is actually work on bridging the gap between the community and the actual university. The community has housed us here many years. And systematically, we created a divide between ourselves and the community, but however, there's no way for us to propel forward and actually make a better Illinois without being involved in the actual community. That's it.
All right, thank you. Mark?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Slyman. I'm a junior undergraduate currently. I'm double majoring in molecular and cellular biology and political science with aspirations to become a physician. I'm running for this because I really care about this university. I care about the direction we're headed, and I think that this position has been hasn't been as well presented as it could be, because a lot of the student population, for instance, when I said to a lot of my friends that I was running, many of them didn't understand what the position was or that we even had this position. And so my biggest thing is really to reach out to the students on the campus, especially undergraduates, graduate students who, this is, like everyone has been saying, an extremely prestigious university. I know that we all have a lot of schoolwork to do. We have one of the largest RSO type campuses with thousands of different RSOs. So I do understand that people are busy, but I really do want to reach out to people that traditionally haven't been involved in the political process and bring them into it. So yeah, I really want to stand for transparency, accountability, and hard work on the board, and really work to let the students know that they do have a voice. And a lot of them don't understand that, or they haven't been aware that they have a voice on campus, but they do, and they have it at the highest level. And so I really think that we should continue to push that to the student population, and I think that it would be good to have someone with different connections around campus, or different RSOs that they're involved in, and who's seen it from the other side, because I really had no idea about this until recently. But then when I saw it, I really wanted to shoot for that and to see what impact I can make on it. So I really thank you guys for your time and for being here. And I'm looking forward to the debate.
All right, thank you, Mark. Ali?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ali Mirza. I'm a sophomore at the university. I study political science. A little bit about me. I'm from a west suburb of Chicago, Lombard, Illinois. My life aspirations include one day acquiring my Juris Doctorate and becoming a professor of law. My platform is built upon the principle of 3 key terms: purpose, participation, and progress. So I want to help increase mental health awareness on this campus, because for too many people, this campus doesn't feel like a home. And it should, because it's one of the top public universities on this campus. I want to help combat sexual assault on campus and work to end sexual assault, because if we don't have that end goal of ending it, we'll never truly reach it. I want to increase environmental sustainability, making sure that we divest from environmentally negligent companies. I want to make sure that we divest from politically negligent companies. And I want to make sure that we make the trustee position more transparent, because you are, as the student trustee, the voice of the student body on the board of trustees. And to accurately represent the student body, you must connect with them.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on to questions. And Ali, I'm going to give you another shot because it was my mistake, but we're going to start with Trayshawn this time, all right?
Okay.
So a reminder, during your term, how do you plan to impact student and academic affairs? What are your goals?
I think the best way to impact student academic affairs is to actually break it down individually. I know on the Board of Trustees, you look at everything at a macro level, but the only way for you to actually truly increase the curriculum in the academic setting at an institution is for you to individually check in on the schools who may not be as big as the engineering program. So the way this could be accomplished is by meeting with the deans of each college, connecting with a student that represents each college for them to be able to kind of tell you what are the problems and the issues, because this is a very large position and you won't be able to kind of know all the individual nicks of what's going on. Expanding on the lunch bunch with the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, I think that program has been a program that's been phenomenal in terms of actually addressing like the problems in the academic setting here on campus. So finding ways to kind of more position your position as student trustee along with the Vice Chancellor to kind of help you all be able to maintain the overall academic excellence here at the institution. Additional to that, every year it all boils down to money. So we do need to go back and the mic actually shut off.
Yeah,
Can everybody hear me? Cool. We need to actually go in and individually look at which program.
All right, so you had a chance to finish your end of your statement, but after that, that is it.
You have a minute.
Oh, cool.
All right, Mark?
Yeah, so to address student academic affairs, for me, the biggest priority is the way I think we should approach this is to really delegate some of those responsibilities to organizations or programs that are closer to the students. So, for instance, I know for fraternities and sororities, there's fraternity and sorority affairs. There's different cultural groups around campus and cultural houses that I think could be great assets to people. And I think there's certain, if we reach out to the RSOs that a lot of people are involved in, I think we can help incentivize on a more local level by providing them with support, providing them with incentives, as well as continuing to fund the most key programs for our colleges, the ones that data show have the best impact. Because I think we should always take a data-based approach to our academics to ensure that we remain among the top public universities in the nation. Thank you.
All right, Ali?
Yeah, just a continuation of what I previously answered, just continuing upon our excellence that we have had at the University of Illinois system. So making sure that we continue to look for different opportunities to grow our university with the creation of the engineering-focused medical school, making sure that we can do different things, maybe introduce new majors. We can allocate different funds to different colleges. Right now, the College of Engineering is one of the most largely funded schools in our university, but making sure that colleges like the liberal arts, fine arts, or even the College of Business get more funding.
All right, thank you. Our second question, and we will start with you, Mark, and then Trayshawn, and then Ollie. In your own words, what are the responsibilities of the student trustee? What makes you qualified to take on these responsibilities? Why do you want to take on these responsibilities? Your time starts now.
All right, all in a minute. Let's make this work. So the responsibilities of student trustee, primarily obviously to sit on the board of trustees of the university, which is responsible for a lot of, like Trayshawn said, a lot of the macro things of the university. Looking at things about the budget, looking at things like the chancellor and the president, how they're doing with their jobs, how their compensation looks, looking at faculty members, looking at academic calendars. So essentially, a lot of the big things that the university needs to run, the people that are accountable for that. Why I want to do this, like I said, it's really to bring more of the students into this process. A lot of them don't understand the power that this position could possibly hold and the representation that it could hold. And I really want to be a voice for the people. And I feel like, leading into the third part of that, I've led as the head of I've been on the Interfraternity Council Board, which has been in charge of 3,500 fraternity men, as well as being deeply involved with the iGuide program and Illinois student government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ollie? Oh, no, Trayshawn.
Yeah. You have two roles and obligations as a student trustee. The first one is to advocate for your university, which would be this campus, to try to get the things that we need actually here. But the second thing and the more important thing is for you to look at everything at a system level, for you to be able to make the overall University of Illinois system better and more powerful. I do think that votes aren't necessarily important in this role. If you actually go to the meetings, essentially, every time you go to a meeting, we're always voting yes on everything. Your biggest avenue as a student trustee is the advocacy. You want to advocate in these committee meetings. You want to be able to be a resource for students to be able to talk to, for them to be able to know how to navigate the system. But in terms of actual formality, it's more so just being present, being involved in the community, and being that one person to go to in terms of students. So like if the vice chancellor has a problem and she needs a student leader, more often than not, she's going to contact the student vice president or the student trustee. So your job is to be aware and be accessible to the actual community and population.
Thank you. Ollie?
The Board of Trustees is the highest governing body of the University of Illinois covering governance and finances. What makes me qualified for this position is that I'll give 100% to it day in and day out. I've been involved with student government, I've been involved with a multitude of different things on campus, and I think that I'll accurately represent the student body's voice on the Board of Trustees. Why am I running? Because I want to leave this campus better than I found it. There's a lot on this campus that can be done, and there's a lot that should be done. We've made a lot of progress as a campus, but we have to continue upon that growth.
Thank you. Question number 3, we're going to start with you, Ollie. Okay. What experience do you have as a campus leader? Tell me about a problem that you've solved in a unique or unusual way. What was the outcome? Were you happy or satisfied with it?
So in my time on campus, I've been involved with the Illinois student government in leadership positions, mainly as an administrative role, picking who gets into the ISG and selecting different positions, filling different vacancies. I've been involved in different committees regarding different things that go on within ISG. I'm also a residential advisor on campus. A lot of what I've done as a residential advisor is tough. You make good connections with these kids, and then when they mess up, it's oftentimes difficult to reprimand them appropriately. So one of the things that I have done is having to reprimand the kids on my floor appropriately. Oftentimes it's difficult to, but following ethics, following governance of the university, you have to follow through with that, even though personally you may not want to.
Mark?
For me, something that I've been involved in on campus pretty heavily is the iGuide program. So as a freshman, I came in actually 2 days early, and then 2 days later, I helped move in my own peers into the residence halls, and then I really enjoyed the experience so much, sort of being the first face that people see on campus, that I ended up doing it the next 2 years, and then I'm applying to be a campus coordinator next year. On top of that, I've been part of the Illinois Student Government and the Committee for Campus Affairs, and I've been the Vice President of Scholarship and Service for the Interfraternity Council. For me, this one the last position presented the most issues. As we know, sometimes there's animosity between different groups on campus. And so my biggest thing was really to help increase cohesiveness of the community and reach out to all different types of people so that they understand that I'm a resource for everybody, that I'm for equality, and I'm for the community growing as a whole together.
Thank you. Trayshawn?
Yes. Some of the experience I've had here on campus as a student trustee, I've also served as the president and treasurer for my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I served as a resident advisor, president of Minimum Impact, program chair of MAAD. I've also served as a 100-strong retention program internal affairs chair, as well as a group leader. Additional to those things, I've also worked in 7 political campaigns. Issue that I have found myself on the shorter end on this campus in particular was actually during my resident advisor position and role. I noticed that there was a lot of microaggressions and systematic forms of oppression towards minority workers. And a way for me to combat that and actually work in my best efforts was I wrote a 30-page grievance report against that, and I was immediately removed from my position without reasoning because I did that. But knowing that would most likely be resolved, I still went forward with a couple of other RAs to do what was the best thing. And from that, there's actually new policies and discussions that are actually being made right now.
All right, thank you. So for the next question, we're going to start with Trayshawn. What experiences have developed your cultural sensitivity? How will you make sure the campus is inclusive during your term? How will you ensure that those policies will reflect the student body?
I would say the number one experience that has influenced my cultural understanding here on campus is actually in my role as student trustee. I understand, like, as a black man, I'm always expected to do less than my counter peers, but it wasn't really until I was put in a position of power or a position in which I had a title, and I noticed people treating me a lot differently. There's been countless of examples of when, like, actual professionals here at the university will actually mistreat me or talk to me inappropriately, and then if I pull out a business card that says student trustee on it, their attitude would quickly readjust. And I understand that from that experience, I've been on both sides of things. So understanding the position of power and understanding how to be a resource for people has been probably the biggest thing that I could kind of take away from my actual position here on campus as student trustee, because now I know how to actually navigate through the system, and I know how, if there's an issue with anybody in the crowd or anybody in general on the campus, if they have an issue, they can come to me and I can show them the proper steps, because a lot of times we report things and it goes absolutely nowhere.
Thank you. Ali?
So learning about different cultural, different things in the culture, I think that a lot of what my knowledge stemmed from that was in my RA role. So we do a lot of diversity and inclusion training, and we talk a lot about different identities on campus, and we talk about a lot of different microaggressions and things of such on campus. So I was exposed to a lot of different things within my role, and through taking classes to be an RA, and it really showed me the different types of things that have gone on in the university through visiting different cultural centers. Oftentimes the university boasts this image of diversity and inclusion when they fail to address the fact that we had police brutality and we had a lot of different things like that in our past. To make this campus more diverse, I think we just need to recognize that we are diverse and then take steps towards being inclusive. So making sure that we get a new mascot first and foremost, that's a hot topic right now. Not accepting a new mascot is just acceptance of the chief.
Thank you, Ali. Mark?
So for me, I think I sort of sit in a unique position because I think I'm partly allowed to span both worlds. Not many people would recognize this on first sight, but my parents are actually first-generation immigrants. Both of them grew up in a developing country and came to the United States to get an education and get a job. And so for me, going back to Lebanon, which is the country I'm from, the Middle East, it's really an eye-opening experience for me, and it's really opened me up to see, how when I come over here, sometimes I don't have to face many of the cultural insensitivities or small microaggressions that other races do. But that only makes me more aware, because there has been times that when people find out that I am, my parents are first-generation immigrants, that I do go back to Lebanon, which is an Arabic-speaking country. I'm met with hate. So for me, it's really all about being accountable and then being respectful and tolerant of all.
Thank you. The next question, we are going to start with you, Mark. Give a specific example of a policy you conformed to with which you did not agree. Why did you conform to that policy?
University policy?
It could be any policy.
A policy I conform to, per se, this is sort of challenging to come up with on the top of my head. But one I would say is just like the idea that we have to conform to what the administration or what people in power have to say instantly without really thinking about it. That can apply to many different things, many different institutions of power, like the government, like the police force. It can apply to university administration. It can apply to alumni organizations. So I think that something that you sort of have to conform to, or like people expect you to conform to, is just to listen to those that have organized. But what I want to say to that is you should work toward what you think is right. Even if it's difficult, even if it takes organization, to really fight against vested interests for the good of the people.
Thank you. Trayshawn?
A policy that I've actually conformed to that I don't necessarily agree with, or let's say I struggle with every day, is on a board of trustees, you are supposed to represent everyone. So a lot of times, prior to me assuming this role, I've had a lot of experience of being an activist and always been on the front line of things, but to truly and effectively represent everyone and be an advocate for everyone, you have to remove yourself from certain settings. And I felt that as a power dynamic, struggling with being myself and also struggling to being a good trustee. I do think that I opted in and decided to do what was best and be a representative of everyone. So a lot of issues, I try, people always invite me to like these protests and like these these panels and things that I know that I would love to do. But sometimes necessary, as a member of the Board of Trustees, you can't necessarily speak on certain things because at the end of the day, I represent the whole entire student body, not just one group of people, and I can't use my position of power to marginalize another group of people for my own self-interest.
Thank you. Ali?
Absolutely. So I think the issue that I faced with policy, and a lot of undergraduates faced it last year, was with the GEO strike. So we weren't allowed to go to class, or the GEO was picketing outside of multiple campus buildings, and you had to weigh whether you wanted to support the GEO, which I did, or whether you wanted to go to class and maintain your grades and to learn, which is what you come here for. So you almost had to pick your poison, which is not supporting them or getting bad grades. So that was something that I struggled with. To work against that, I did go to class, but I also supported my professors and my TAs in the sense that I picketed with them. So.
Thank you. So for the next question, we are going to start with you, Trishan. What do you love about being an Illini?
When you go to an airport, you know, you always have someone annoyingly screaming out the slogan. Whenever I wear a T-shirt and it has University of Illinois on it, people look at me as if I made it. Not knowing anything about me, they just assume that you are a person who are productive, you're a well-respected person. And more important than that, I love the family. The way this campus has rallied behind me multiple times throughout my experience here on campus has been wonderful, and it's something that I would probably take with me to my grave. I never really felt true love until I actually came to this university. It's something I'm very proud of. It's the reason why I'll be a double alumni of this university and this institution. I believe firmly that even though we don't necessarily get everything done right, that we're actually making strides to be better. We have great administrators now. I can't speak on the past, but now we do have great administrators.
Thank you, Trishan. Ali?
So the University of Illinois boasts the largest alumni network in the world. What I love about being an Illini is that I can connect with so many different people on the level that I went to a school similar than them. Wherever you go, if you wear university apparel, people know, that's University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. You have this thing like that you are better than a lot of people in the sense that you went to the University of Illinois. You can boast that you're more confident than them. You can boast that you have so much more experiences than them. And then the University of Illinois also provides you with so many different opportunities. The three of us are up here running for student trustee to represent 44,000 students. If I wasn't an Illini, I wouldn't get the opportunity to do that. So what I love about being an Illini is the opportunities that it has presented me.
Thank you. Mark?
So ILL. No, for me, it's a lot of different things. I mean, being an Illini is more than just going to this university. It's being part of organizations. It's going to your classes. It's making connections. I had the wonderful opportunity to study abroad with some close friends and a faculty member. And I can say that that faculty member has had an amazing impact on my life, showing me what it is to care for students, what it is to be there as more than just a professor, to be there in an emotional and a helpful way, more than just like, okay, here's your material. I've made some of my greatest friends here. I felt like I belong here, and that's why I continue to try and be involved in the freshman experience by helping kids move in. I really just love the tradition here. I love the people, and I love how much being an Illini is a mark of honor for all of us.
Thank you. So before we transition to audience questions, we're going to have a brief 2-minute intermission. 8. Yep. And you'll have 90 seconds this time.
Oh, wow. Exciting.
Yeah, because they're straight from the audience.
Looking forward to it. Like Portuguese?
Huh?
Like Portuguese?
Why Portuguese? Because of the African diaspora. Yeah, and they're giving me tuition money.
Really? That's
Yeah.
awesome. I used to have a friend who's Brazilian.
Do you know where she's from? Do you know where they're from?
Sao Paulo?
Oh, okay. I visited there. Yeah, I studied in Rio though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he's from Sao Paulo. He said his grandma was in the favelas, so it's
Oh.
very dangerous. For him.
Oh yeah. I worked for an NGO in the favelas in Rio. Mhm.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he told me it was pretty sketchy stuff. You know, at least that's what he told me.
Yeah. Can be. Can be. But they're people.
Yeah, well, I admire you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and shift gears to the audience questions. So previously, you had 60 seconds to respond to the question. However, for audience questions, you have 90 seconds. At the end of the 90 seconds, your mic will slowly turn off, or abruptly, and that'll be the end, and then you can complete your statement. All right? So we are going to start with Ollie. Considering decreased funding from the state in the past, how will you adapt to potential budget cuts in the future?
So to look at different budgetary cuts in the future, we can do a lot of fundraising through the University of Illinois Foundation. We can, again, I said before, we have the largest alumni network in the world, so we can allocate more funds from them. We can reach out to different organizations on campus, such as Student Alumni Ambassadors, such as Engineering Student Alumni Association, and work with them to better have a bond with alumni and make sure that we have funding coming in from different places other than just state level funding. In terms of the cost of tuition. Inflation causes the cost to go up steadily, so we would have to match that, unfortunately, and then we can just possibly take away a little bit from scholarship money or grants and stuff like that.
All right, thank you. Mark?
So for me, the biggest thing I think is recognizing that since we're a Class 1 research university, we do get a lot of research funding. We're actually one of the universities that has the most research funding in the entire world from the National Science Foundation. And for me, that's a big point of pride as a member of, or as a molecular and cellular biology major. I see firsthand how much money my research lab gets from certain organizations, and it's because of the groundbreaking work that we do. So I think really focusing on our academics can create streams of income that aren't dependent on politics. They're dependent on elbow grease and brain power. So I think really working to increase our academic prestige beyond what it is already. Obviously, tapping our alumni network again is a great idea. And then finally, I think really planning for the future starts now. So if you know that a representative is coming up for an election that is a University of Illinois supporter, vote now so that you don't have to deal with budget cuts later. Vote in representatives to your state and your local legislature that understand the economic impact of our university on this community, that understand the groundbreaking work that we do, and that understand that education helps bring people out of poverty, can change socioeconomic outcomes, and can really create a better future for all of us. So let's fund our university and let's fund education.
Thank you, Mark. Trayshawn?
We are fortunate enough to not necessarily have to worry about that issue. We're not like Eastern Illinois University. 10 years ago, the institution was kind of smart, and what they did was they rise the actual tuition fees that we pay now. That's been froze for like the past 5 years. To plan for this ahead of time. The last 2 years, we haven't had a budget. We've actually slowly starting back actually getting budgets now. But due to campaign initiatives such as the With Illinois or the ones that we have at each institution, the $3.2 billion fundraising efforts to try to plan and protect against future efforts of us not necessarily having money or a budget, I think we're in pretty solid shape. I would say that the best thing that we could do is ultimately be mindful and monitor how we spending money. I would say in certain departments, we spend money a little bit egregious. We don't necessarily have to spend money the way we have. So by monitoring spending habits, we'll be able to reduce cost efforts and will ultimately be even better shape than we are in today.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, you will be starting with this question. What will you do to provide resources and funding to mental health on campus?
So mental health, I think we've seen is an extremely important issue, not just on campus, but also just in America as a whole. As we begin to grow out of the stigma of mental health, it takes proactive efforts, it takes time, it takes resiliency, but we're beginning to see the fruits of our labor really come out when we notice things like Mental Health Awareness Day that I know is very, very heavily shared around this campus. When we look at the Women's Resource Center, the LGBT Resource Center, the different cultural centers, I think those are key assets to our population. Considering this is a predominantly white institution, some of them may have concerns, with what's going on, or they may feel excluded in certain ways. So understanding those things and providing resources to cultural centers who can really allocate those resources as best as needed by the population, I think that's critical. And then finally, really just, like I said, teaching students from the moment they get here that mental health is important. Mental health is an issue. It affects every single person. Regardless of if you say, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, we're all affected by our lives. No one goes through life without any struggles. So understanding that, being open about it, reducing the stigma, and educating the population to mental health is going to be the best steps forward.
Thank you, Mark. Trayshawn?
I struggle with mental health. Mental health is something that's always been important to me. Every year I sit on probably at least 10 plus panels regarding mental health. One thing that I have been working on right now is actually establishing a budget for the actual student trustee. I was successful in helping the other two trustees at the other two institutions establish their budget. And part of that budget, I would spend a lot of time actually working on scaling up programs to actually address mental health concerns and needs, because I do understand, like, at this point in time in our lives right now, we're most likely to be attacked and struggle with mental health issues because we're at a very pivotal part of our life, and everything seems like it's so bad because in reality it is. Students, they struggle, and I do believe that allocating funds for mental health is the most important thing we could do, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many panels we have, how many panels we sit on. Without actual capital, we can't really take more strides in terms of actually providing better resources for our actual students. Led.
Thank you, Trayshawn. Ali?
I'll agree with Trayshawn that you need to have capital to do anything on this subject. We need to allocate more funds to the counseling center. Right now, there's a disproportionate amount of counselors in regards to how much students we have on campus, and we need to allocate more money to hire more counselors. We need to make the counseling center more accessible for different students and for people throughout campus, because mental health is an issue, and sadly it isn't addressed as much as it should be. We need to have a campus-wide discussion on mental health, potentially having different types of workshops, such as FICARE, but catered towards mental health. I'll agree with Mark in terms of the cultural centers being very important to establishing a bit of a home for people that it might be more difficult to cope with the idea of being so far away from home. I would advocate for a MENA Cultural Center. We have different cultural centers for almost every different identity and every different ethnicity here on campus, but we still lack a MENA Cultural Center, even though that makes such a large population of our student body.
Thank you. All right. The next question, we will start with you, Trayshawn. How will you ensure your policies will reflect the student body that you will be called to represent?
Well, part of being on the Board of Trustees, you don't necessarily make policies. But I was sure that everything I do and all my efforts are reflective of the actual student body. I'm a type of person that I don't typically go off on personal needs and personal tangents. I try to remain unbiased, even when I blatantly dislike something. A prime example would be I blatantly hate the chief. That is something I believe, that is something I'm passionate about, but I don't try to throw my hate in for the chief up into everyone's face. I try to work towards solutions that get to the root of the issue. Everyone who supports the chief isn't racist. Some are, I'm not gonna lie, some are. But when you get to the grassroots of every issue, you can kind of be a better representative for everyone student body wide. So I think the best thing to do is not try to marginalize people in your efforts to try to get to your goals. So I would say the best thing I could do is actually be an advocate, but a listener to all people.
Thank you. Ali?
So I think that as the student trustee, it's important to practice bottom-up governance, making sure that you reach out to the people at the bottom, such as students, first of all. Then we reach out to RSOs on campus. We reach out to different student leaders on campus, making sure that you have roundtable meetings with them, making sure that you understand what their concerns are, and then you portray those concerns to the Board of Trustees, not just going with the motions, going to the meetings, and just voting on your own whim, but actually understanding what the student body is passionate about, letting your own thoughts interject into that, because you are a student as well, and then also taking into account what everyone else says, and then addressing that on the Board of Trustees meetings.
Thank you. Mark?
So for me, I think the biggest thing that I want to work on, like I've said before, is really reaching out to the student population. Not many of them are aware of this. Not many of them understand this position or understand the power or the representation that they have. And so I think really we have a sort of silent majority on campus that hasn't been able to really reflect what they want to do because they haven't understood how to participate. They haven't understood who's there. They haven't understood how to contact them or be in. And so I really want to tap into the silent majority because sometimes I'll be walking around campus and I'll hear things or I'll see different posts on social media and I'll be like there's something that's addressing this. We do have a student government that not everyone understands or knows about. We do have like I said, this position student trustee that not everyone is aware of. So for me, the biggest thing to ensure that the policies reflect the student population, first of all, commit myself to equality, commit myself to being as open as possible, and making sure that everything I do takes into account possible microaggressions. That's the number one thing I want to do, is be culturally sensitive. But the second thing is to really tap into that silent majority and really understand what students want, more than just the ones that speak about it, but the ones maybe, the vast majority that don't, or that are too busy to, what do they think? So I really want to represent as much of the population.
Trayshawn?
I answer first.
Oh, sorry. All right, next question. We're going to start with Ollie. What makes you stand out from the other candidates?
I've been involved with student government on campus, and I've been involved in a multitude of different organizations on campus, and I know a multitude of different people in different organizations on campus. What makes me stand out from the other candidates is that I'll make sure that I go to them instead of letting them come to me. As student trustee, it's important that not only do you make yourself available to everybody on campus, but you make an effort to understand what they're passionate about. I'll put in 100% to this position day in and day out. That's what makes me different from everyone.
Thank you. Mark?
So for me, I'd like to echo a little bit what Ali said. I do feel like I have a different, or a more open connection with the campus. I've been involved in several different areas. I've been to those lunches at the different cultural centers. I love going to those. I've been involved with fraternity and sorority life, which is an extremely important part of our campus. Considering it consists of 25% of our student population. I've been in touch with some of the graduate students during the GEO strike. I've been involved with volunteering and with research on campus. So some of the really deeply academic, aspects of our campus that not a lot of students see. I've studied abroad in Vienna with faculty members and students. And so I really think I've had a diverse experience here. And I think that's an asset because, like I said, there's a lot of people who don't understand, who haven't seen a lot of the governance of the university, who aren't as much involved in it. And so I think having connections in all types of different areas, as well as really maintaining the ties with the ones that are most committed to government, like the Illinois Student Government, which I've been a member of since freshman year on the Committee for Campus Affairs. I really think those are assets, and to continue those relationships and to make sure that I'm listening to all of them and making sure they're all heard.
Thank you. Trayshawn?
Yeah. With the exception of studying abroad, in terms of experience and involvement, I would say we all have similar backgrounds. We all have been in similar-like organizations, have had similar-like experience. I would say what sets me apart and makes me different from the other two candidates is actual experience. It takes you roughly 9 months to get adjusted and used to this position. You're not just going to start day one and start making demands and changing campus. And more likely than not, by the time you get a flow of how things work and how things operate, your term will be over. So the actual impact and changes you make on campus is very microscopic. So what I think is best is for us to have people who are passionate, serious, but also have some sense of longevity, because at the end of the day, it's one thing you have to learn who the key stake people that you need to meet, introduce yourself with, and actually work with to make actual changes. It's different when you already know those people and you're already continuing issues that you've already been working on in the past. Most of the people who are here right now, they probably wouldn't be here if I didn't personally invite them. I don't think that ISG and even the role as student trustee is as effective as it should be or as it could be. If you look at the student elections, 5,000 students max probably vote. We have 48,000 plus students. So obviously, with our individual backgrounds, none of us are reaching a mark in terms of actual students. We're not talking to the common students. We're talking to students in which that we have our backgrounds from, but we're not being very reflective with this.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with Mark. Actions speak louder than words. What specific action have you taken that has had the greatest positive influence at the University of Illinois?
That's a big question. I think the way I'm going to answer that is twofold, because you can have an impact at a campus-wide level or at a macroscopic level, and then you can really have an impact at an individual level. And I think understanding both is important, because if you just focus on one or the other, you're not really reaching your full potential. So on a microscopic level, I served as an iGuide my sophomore year, which is essentially you help students move into their dorms freshman year. You're the first person they see on campus. You're the first person their parents see on campus. So you're really a representation of the university. And I remember having this great experience with a student that I moved into my old dorm, my old dormitory room, and really, I thought it was a great experience. But then the next year, I saw him volunteering, and he told me when I went and spoke to him that it was because of an impact that I had on him, because of my positive experience and our conversation that motivated him to lift people's stuff for 8 hours. Which is definitely an impressive thing, I would say. So that I think really is important on an individual level. On a macroscopic level, I've really helped people attain scholarship. Because I was able to sponsor a graduate school exam reimbursement program that provided direct funds and material support to people who were attending graduate school, and we provided over $5,000 to further education.
Thank you. Trayshawn?
Yes. The reason why we go here is to matriculate. Mentorship is very pivotal in my heart. It's something I believe in. I actually started my own scholarship program 3 years ago. And I actually give back to my hometown, and this year I've actually been working on incorporating this actual current town in terms of giving scholarships to the seniors. I've been present in the community doing actual mentorship at the Don Meyer Boys and Girls Club for several years. And most importantly, I think what is important for us as a student body is to have overall support and have people actually coming back in our actual communities and speaking. I'm a type of person, I don't come around just election time, and it seems apparent to me that every time we have elections, we have new faces and new spaces. I've been pretty consistent in terms of the efforts that I've been trying to make and the people I've been trying to reach and trying to expand upon that, but I don't usually do those things during political season, campaigning season. And also in terms of helping people get scholarship, I'm a Gates Millen Scholar, I'm a Coca-Cola Scholar. I've helped over 13 people get the Gates Millen Scholarship. I've helped over 10 people get the Coca-Cola Scholarship. And this is something I do every year in terms of going back to schools and within the communities to actually speak and preach and help people actually obtain money to afford college, because people of my background don't necessarily have these opportunities, and I make sure that every day I don't waste it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali?
So I'll highlight my experience as a residential advisor for this. As Mark said, iGuides are one of the first people that you interact with or you talk to when you are at this university. As an RA, these people, when they first come to the university, you're one of the first people that they have a conversation with. As an RA, I've been a mentor to the people on my floor. I've had the experience and I've had the ability to guide them into where they can be successful in this university, where they should place their feet, how they should get their feet wet, what they should do on campus. Not only have I been a positive mentor for them, but I've been able to be a friend for them. So I think that it's not about making a campus-wide difference, because that's very difficult to do as an individual student. You have to oftentimes come together as a body of students. But it's about making little changes, and then those little changes stem off. And then those people make little changes. You change somebody's life, and then they change somebody else's life. So you want to plant this idea of giving back in somebody's head, and then they continue to plant that idea for future college students.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with you, Trayshawn. What does diversity mean to you?
To me, diversity is more than just a statement that we use at the university. It's more of a worn down word that we use as an answer to every question. Diversity is making sure that all groups are represented and all groups have an avenue to be able to advocate for themselves. Diversity is more than just saying that we're diverse, but then when you actually break down the numbers, you notice that our diversity isn't that really diverse in itself. Diversity is a word that I think is not appropriate for this culture. I think we should get rid of that word, and I think we should actually strive to be whole, strive to make sure that we have communities that are better represented, and strive to make sure that we are breaking down and being more reflective of the actual state of Illinois in terms of our students, faculty, and prospective students. Yeah.
Ali?
Diversity, to me, means an inclusion of multitude of different groups on campus. We are a very diverse school, but our school's numbers still don't accurately represent the state's numbers in terms of population and diversity. So to me, diversity means being accepted for other groups on campus, making sure that we treat everyone equally, and that we make sure that we are taking steps to be inclusive.
Thank you. Mark?
So for me, I really advocate for this point, for this term multiculturalism, because I really believe in a cultural mosaic, more than I believe in the idea of America as a melting pot, because in melting pot, everything gets blended until it's all the same. And we don't all want to be the same. I think the biggest thing is we have to understand that we are different, but we're united by something greater than what we show each other. You know, we're united by something greater than, you know, our, just how we look or how we speak. That's not something that should divide us. We're united on this campus and in this country by values that transcend any race or any ethnicity. And so I think, like I said, a cultural mosaic allows the expression, allows the celebration of each individual culture without taking away from each one and making it all into some type of beige gray thing. We don't want everything to blend into each other. We want everything to be celebrated. We want individual aspects to be shown and to be celebrated and to be exposed to the world because they're beautiful for how they are. They're beautiful when they're individual and when they're unique, and they're not beautiful if we all just try and make it as beige as possible. You know, we really want to make it, we really want to celebrate each individual tile in the mosaic because that's what makes the picture beautiful.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with you, Ollie. How do you plan to improve the connection between the Illinois student government and the student trustee?
Absolutely. So I am a member of the Illinois student government, so I think that gives me a step up in trying to connect with the student government. When the student government and the Illinois student trustee or the U of I student trustee work together, only then can you foster true change, because when you have collective efforts towards change, then you can make change. As student trustee, I intend on remaining involved in student government, and I think that being involved within an organization is the best way to make a path to connect those two organizations and that position.
Thank you. Mark?
So I too would say that I've been a member of the Illinois student government for a while. I've served on the Committee for Campus Affairs, like I said. Through that, I've been able to make a lot of good relationships with people, really come to understand different types of people and the people that are involved in the governance of our university. But I always feel like there's room for improvement. You know, I can never say that I've got the most perfect relationship with everybody, but I do think, and I do agree with Ali, that the student trustee and the student government should be on the same page. They should be working together, even if it's not exactly in the same arena, but working towards the same overarching goal. Because at the end of the day, we can't all do the same things, and we shouldn't all be doing the same things, but we should be working towards the goal of a better university that serves all of us. And so I think that definitely I would work to identify those goals first, and then divvy up responsibility between the ISG and the student trustee to accomplish that as efficiently and as as efficient and as great as possible, and really make this university better.
Thank you. Trayshawn?
I think something needs to be done. You know, I've been in this role for 2 years, and I would say this year I definitely took a big step back in terms of student government. The first year, you know, I would show up every meeting suited, and often probably be the only person in the room dressed up and taking the actual meeting serious. And I noticed that, like, every week I would say, like, "Hi, I'm Trayshawn Mitchell. I'm your student trustee. I want to work with you. Feel free to reach out. I'll reach out to you." And for 2 years, not one student senator has ever reached out to me to work on anything. And also to add to that, I noticed that every year when we have different students who consider themselves minorities, I often don't see them coming back the next year. And when we ask why, they're tired of the microaggressions. And even me as a student trustee, I've seen the microaggressions as a parent. It's one of the reasons why I kind of channel my energy back towards the students versus the student government. I don't feel like we're actually making our means in terms of actually hitting the students. A lot of students don't know that we have a student government. A lot of students aren't actually involved with the student government. There's a way that we could be in terms of making sure that students are actually getting more involved with the student government, more involved with the Office of the Board of Trustees, and that would be how we make actual change. But the status quo that we have now is not acceptable. and just going to meetings not acceptable. We need to do something different because at the end of the day, nothing's being changed. We've had these roles for several years, and we haven't had too much difference in terms of like the actual impact that each role has made.
Thank you. For our final question, we will begin with Mark. What are your concrete ideas on how you will effectively work with the Board of Trustees so actual progress is made instead of just promises?
So obviously Trayshawn, I would say, has probably more experience in the concrete stuff, but I don't think that having a lack of experience excludes anyone from this position, because this is a position that has a one-year term for a reason. If they really felt like you couldn't do anything in a year, then they wouldn't give you a year-term position. They would give you a 2-year term position or a 3-year term position. Obviously, Trayshawn has worked to earn this title twice, so applaud for him. But I think that having fresh and new people come into different leadership positions is an asset to our university. And I do think that as far as concrete goals, I really want to look over the finances of our university, but as Trayshawn said, a lot of times the Board of Trustees sort of votes yes on a lot of things without really challenging it too much. As someone who has been outside of this system, I can say that I can bring a fresh eye to it. I'll be a little bit more critical, I think, and I'll have an idea of maybe what some other students have been thinking that haven't been really involved in student government, and to their own detriment. And I think they should be more involved, and I'm trying to get them more involved. But as far as concrete ideas, I really want to look at the finance.
What you bring to the table is advocacy, and that looks different. But if you look at any grassroots issue that we have at this institution, we always are angry about something. Just like in the fall, we're going to be angry about the chief. We strike, we fight against it, it dies down, and then the same issue picks itself back up next year. And I think the reason why the institution is successful with kind of holding us off is because we don't actually have longevity in these actual positions and roles. But when you have a person who's actually fighting for something rigorously for several months, several years, you actually see more change. I personally believe, and you all can feel free to double check me, that this institution has had a lot of success over the past 2 years. And I would say that I personally believe that my second year was a lot easier because I knew who to meet with, I knew who to talk to, and I knew what concrete goals I worked on my first term. I knew the mistakes I made. I knew the areas and where I had to improve. I knew I had a schedule. It's like I had a guideline, a blueprint to being a student trustee. So I do believe that the best thing that we could do is to be intentional in everything we do. Stay focused on all of our issues that we have as a community and make sure that we're passing down these issues down to our younger folk, because what happens is every time we have a new group of people that graduates, we lose track of the focus and we don't actually fight the fight. So my goal is to actually continue with my platform, and I feel like I've been successful thus far, and I know I have a lot more to do, but I know who to reach out to because of where I've been.
Thank you. Finally, Ali.
I'll echo what Mark said. If the student trustee role couldn't do anything in 1 year, then they wouldn't have made it a one-year term. In 2012, UIUC passed a referendum question to divest from coal. And since then, it's been halted at the Board of Trustees. You're just one voice on the Board of Trustees as a student trustee, so you got to make sure that that voice is heard. You're going up against different administrators, and you're going up against the other Board of Trustee members when you are the student trustee. So making sure that you accurately represent the student voice, because that's what you have to do as the student trustee. Making sure that you bring to their attention different ideas that the students have and different things that they have halted, even though they should be addressed.
All right, thank you. That is the end of the audience questions. In order to close out the debate, each candidate will have 2 minutes to announce their closing statement. We will begin with Trey. Sean.
First and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming out, being attentive. I want to challenge everyone to actually ask questions. I think it's important for you to do your research as a student and as a person who holds this role. It's not okay for you to want to assume such responsibility, but not take the little time to actually do research and know who are the administrators, what are the committees. Prior to me assuming this role, I actually attended 2 board meetings. I actually did my research, I actually called people, I talked to previous trustees. I didn't use this as a platform to be something on my resume. And I think it's very important for you all to know who you are electing, why are you electing a person, and hold them accountable. And that includes myself. Very often, I could go months without people even asking me a single question. And that's something that I always call out, and I try to be a little bit more respectful how I communicate that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you elect if you're not holding that person accountable. It doesn't matter if it's me, it doesn't matter if it's Mark, it doesn't matter if it's Ali. At the end of the day, this is your institution. 1 year of being a trustee, you can't really accomplish that much. And I'm telling you that from experience. What happens is you need people to actually connect to students on a personal level and be able to pass forth a guideline to be able to be successful. Because there's nothing that you could do in the institution in a full year in terms of making mass changes. Now, I understand you get little things done in a year, but if you want to see mass changes and the actual improvements on this actual campus, if you actually want to be a better Illinois, if you want to see your goals actually enacted, it takes time. We talked about divestment on the Board of Trustees. In 2 years, that has never came up in the board meeting that I've been in. Why? Because those things don't make it to the actual meetings. But you don't know that unless you're actually there and present. So it's very important for you all to know who you're electing, why you're electing. Do your research. Read all of our platforms. Every single person. Read mine. If you have a problem, email me, text me, call me. It doesn't matter. Hold the person that you elect in all positions, whether it's your senator, your president, your trustee, accountable. Because if not, you have a year of less progress. You're taking steps back instead of taking steps forward.
Thank you. Ali?
To end, I want to see the University of Illinois continue to prosper and be one of the most prestigious universities in Illinois for years to come, as it has in the past. This election, as Trayshawn said, it's not about just electing somebody to sit as a student trustee on the Board of Trustees. It's about electing somebody who's going to accurately represent the student voice. Your platform is important, but it's even more important to represent the student voice on the Board of Trustees. You have to be transparent in the position. You have to make sure that you reach out to students. Not that you just let them come to you, but you actually go out of your way to reach out to them. This position demands 100% from the student that's in it, and the student body deserves nothing less. I will give 100% to this position day in and day out.
Thank you. Finally, Mark.
Again, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate everyone's attention. I'm sure the rest of the guys here up here do. Once again, I really would like to emphasize this idea that this position is a little unheard of, and that is an issue that can't be solved by one person. It doesn't matter who was in this position. In the past 30 years, it hasn't really been talked about. You know what I mean? It's never been down on one person, and a lot of that has to do with the idea that some people don't think that the student trustee does anything. You know what I mean? They don't think that the student trustee is anything because they don't have any idea what it is. And that, like I said, that's a systemic thing that's been going on with our campus and how they feel about student governance in general. And we see year after year. And so I would agree with Trayshawn and Ali that the platform is really important. That who you're electing and for what reasons and why is crucial to really creating change and creating a university that's more inclusive, that responds to the students, and then finding someone who's going to be available, who's going to be passionate about the work, who's going to be at the meetings, who's going to be doing more than the bare minimum in terms of advocacy, in terms of being there for students, in terms of understanding policy. And so I think that's one of the things that experience obviously is something you can't replicate exactly, but passion, dedication, hard work, and an invested interest in our university, those things can be replicated. And those are things that I think we all possess, and I think that's something I want to emphasize, is that my platform, while it may be new, it is researched. It is really something that I've put a lot of time into, and I really want to I hope the student population takes that into consideration and makes the best decision for them, regardless of who it is. Go out there and vote and exercise your right.
Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for all of the candidates? So we hope this debate has given you all enough information to make an educational vote. Don't forget that the polls open tonight at 11:59 p.m. So on behalf of CSEC, thank you so much for attending the 2019 Student Trustee Debate. Thank you and have a good night.
All righty, good evening, everyone. If you could quiet down just a second, I would appreciate it. Welcome, everyone, to the Illinois Student Government Presidential Debate, the second one of two. My name's Fernando Arias. I am the Chief Justice of the Illinois Student Government, and I'll be serving as your moderator this evening. So now, let's introduce our candidates. From your right to left, or from my left to right, we have Mr. Connor Joselis, Senator Marissa Finley, Senator Denise Namick, and also Mr. Alex Sierra. So with that, the debate tonight will have 3 questions that have already been written by the executive of the Illinois Student Government. It will also have audience questions, which is good news for all of you. So if you have any audience questions that you would like to submit, you can go visit our table here to the left. They're raising their hands over there. They have note cards that you can write down your question on, and then those will be delivered to me, because after we get through our 3 prepared questions tonight, with any time that we have remaining, we'll go through those audience questions. So again, please have those audience questions be specific, succinct, and avoid any ad hominem attacks. And with that, we should be good to go. So, brief note on format. Tonight, we will have 3-minute opening statements by each candidate. The order for those opening statements will be as follows. Mr. Joselis, Senator Namick, Mr. Sierra, Senator Finley. That will also be the order again for closing statements. After those 3-minute opening statements, we'll move into our 3 pre-prepared questions, followed by those audience questions. After a question is asked, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. After that period, there will be a 4-minute period of back and forth. Those back and forth discussions will be limited to 30 seconds for each candidate. And if their name is invoked, they will be able to jump the line to answer that question. And then at the end, as I mentioned before, we'll have closing statements. Those will also be 3 minutes, just as the opening statements were. Are there any questions from any of the candidates? All right, so with that, we will move into opening statements. Again, 3 minutes long, starting with Mr. Joselis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Connor Joselis. I'm running for student body president, obviously, alongside my running mate, Jack Lingen, who's right out there. A little bit about me. I'm a sophomore in LAS from suburban Chicago, but I'm a journalist by trade. I have a passion for truth and transparency, especially when it comes to the government, and that's part of what's led me to be on the stage today. Over the last several years, we've seen the power of young people organizing together for change. Quite frankly, this movement seems to have missed this campus. The Illinois student government has a tremendous opportunity to be a positive catalyst of change, and I plan to make that happen. Over the last several weeks, I've talked to hundreds of students about what issues concern them. Well over 8 out of 10 of them don't even know what ISG is or what they do. I think that's a problem. I know that we need to work to make college more affordable, be at the forefront of reducing our carbon footprint, and we need to be working with all stakeholders to make sure everyone at this university has a voice. I'm excited to discuss these issues, and I thank the other candidates for being here, and I look forward to the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Joselis. With that, we'll have the opening statement from Senator Namick.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Namick. I'm a junior, double majoring in integrative biology and Spanish. I've been a senator for the past 2.5 years, and I've had the honor and privilege to be the chair of the Committee on Diversity and Inclusion through the Illinois Student Government, as well as be a part of various groups and organizations on campus, both on campus and off campus. I want to be student body president because I want to give this voice back to the students. I believe that there are many issues on campus that the administration fails to address and tackle that affects the student body directly. And the only way we can tackle these problems is by empowering the student body. And I believe that we as a student government, as well as we as a student body, are not unified and empowered enough to be able to do that, which is why we have so many problems that shouldn't be problems in the first place, but they are. I know what it takes to be a voice for the students through my experience and through talking to various organizations and student groups. But again, it's not just my voice, it's everyone's voice, and I want to be able to make sure that that is what's going on. And I wanted to let you know that Susan and I, my running mate, are the only candidates that have a detailed platform that has concrete actions and goals to address issues on campus that affect the student body. So combined, we have the experience and we have the relationships we need to be able to tackle things and meet with administration and be able to communicate with other people all over campus in a way that's effective without wasting time, without wasting a semester or even an entire year trying to grasp what's going on and what the position entails and holds. So with that, I hope that this debate goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra?
Good evening, everyone. Oh, is it on? Hello? Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexander Sierra. I am a rising third-year student at the university studying political science with a concentration in law and power and international relations. I'm on the pre-law track. And I will be running for Illinois Student Government Student Body President, along with my running mate, Vice President Kimberly George Chuka Emeka, who is a rising fourth-year transfer student here at the university. Our platform mainly consists of academic affordability, student advocacy, diversity and inclusion, environmental sustainability, government relations, and resource accessibility, very similar to my opponents. What I would encourage all of you to do is listen very strategically throughout this entire debate. Because like I previously said, we have a lot of similarities, but our plan of execution and our genuine and transparency is what's going to make us different as candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. And finally, Senator Finley.
Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Marissa Finley, and I am a double major in political science and psychology. I currently am an active member in the Illinois Student Government. I am a senator, and I am also a chair on the Committee of Campus Affairs. I actually run these meetings every week, even if we don't have things to discuss. I find it very important to encourage my members to come every week to be involved. My time commitment is very serious to the Illinois Student Government. Arnaldo and I are super passionate about all of the issues that we are discussing today, and we also have a platform set out. It's a 5-point platform of academic affordability, mental health awareness, sexual assault awareness and prevention, environmental protection, and I just literally blinked, I'm sorry. So I know that we are the best candidates for this position, and that we also do have a detailed platform that is very structured and set out. We are 100% qualified for this. We have the experience. We have everything that a student body president needs in ISG. And a big point for my platform is that the administration does not like having discussions about change. And as I said in the previous debate, tradition is good, but we need to change a lot of the policies that are currently here because there's not enough, like I said before, diversity and inclusion and things that this university needs. So in the end, it's your voice and your vision, and we're there for you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, so with that, we'll move into our pre-prepared questions, of which we have 3. For these questions, remember, you'll have 2 minutes to give your opening statement on that question, followed by 4 minutes of that 30-second back and forth. So with that, the order for our first question, or Mr. Sierra will answer the first question first. Your time will begin after the second reading of this question. So the first question, what do you see as the role of the student body president in ISG? Again, what do you see as the role of the student body president in ISG?
Thank you for that question. The role of the student body president in the Illinois student government is simply to be a system of support for each and every student and every student organization. As acting in Illinois student government, the the president should have a bipartisan position in which they remain a neutral stance, allowing every individual to be heard despite their opinion. Also, as acting president, there is a line to draw in terms of free speech versus hate speech, and I think that is a line that we teeter with a lot. However, we fail to acknowledge. Silencing individuals is not the way to go, and I think that our student government has done that in previous forms by not hearing every individual despite their stance on issues. So once again, the role of president is to be neutral and hear out every individual and offer every individual and group of individuals the platform to be heard and amplify their voice.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Senator Namick?
I believe that the role of the Illinois Student Government President is to be a facilitator in whatever conversations occur, both within the Student Senate meetings as well as on campus. The role of being president is to make sure that you're sitting down with individual students and hearing their concerns and knowing what's going on around campus. It's being able to go to different registered student organizations, student groups, being able to go to random places like the Union and talking to students, either doing their homework or just chilling, and seeing what they're doing, how they're doing, how's their experience on campus, because essentially the role of the president is to represent everyone on campus. So in order to represent people on campus, it's very important for you to know what's going on campus, to be aware of issues going on, whether it be on the administration and faculty level or the student level. So I believe that student body president, the main role of the student body president is being able to communicate and talk to students and know what's going on campus, and having ideas and knowing how to go from there once you identify problems on campus.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Giselles.
I think the role of the executive and the ISG president is to be a good listener. I think whether it's listening to your senators or listening to people in the executive, I think more importantly, it's listening to everyday students that might not want to come to a Senate meeting and raise their voice. It's having a stake at every corner of campus, being able to utilize that to see what's going on in campus. I think the second thing is holding people accountable, whether it's holding the administration accountable or whether it's holding people involved in Illinois student government who maybe aren't pulling their weight. I think that's important. I think maybe even a better question than being student body president in ISG is, not even involved in ISG, but just being with the students, representing all the students, not just representing ISG, but inviting students who have an underrepresented voice to meetings to talk. I think a big part of that in challenging the administration is doing that. I think students know what's going on in this campus, not just everyone in ISG, although ISG tries to be as representative as possible. It's impossible, no matter who's in charge. So I think it is important to have students everywhere and be able to utilize those connections and making real change.
Thank you. Senator Finley.
Yeah, so the role of the Illinois student government is supposed to be advocating for the students, giving a voice to the students. You hear a lot of people say that we don't currently do that. And again, there are so many students who don't even know that we have an Illinois student government, don't even know that we have a student body president. So it's getting the institution's name out there so that people know that we exist and that they can come to us. I know that I've previously talked with people about ISG, like exec holding office hours, which sounds kind of funny, but at the same time, like having students being able to just come and talk to you about something that's important to them, even just like an individual in RSO, just coming and telling you something that they think that you should be working on campus is very important. Another thing is just bridging the gaps that currently exist between the students and ISG, and that has a lot to do with like cliques, because a lot of times ISG is looked at as a friend group, so people don't feel comfortable, so it's just making people feel more comfortable to be able to come and speak to you, and yeah.
Thank you, Senator. All right, so with that, we'll now move into the back and forth period of 4 minutes. This is meant to be more conversational. So with that, I'll start a 4-minute timer. Each of you, remember, gets 30 seconds to respond. So with that, I'll start the timer, and I'll open the floor to anyone who would like to rebut. Go Go ahead.
I'll start first. So I think something important that we've all said was the fact that it's important to adequately represent all demographics across campus. However, I strongly believe that ISG has failed to do so, and it's very worrisome to me that candidates who are running for president have contributed to this system in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I apologize. Your time has expired. Is there anyone else who would like to rebut?
Sure. I think there's this issue about certain candidates saying that the ISG isn't representative or that the ISG is having problems or that it's toxic. I fully agree. I think the Illinois student government can do a much better job at reaching out to different students and making sure that retention rates within the student government is high. And I know that there are problems, and I have 7 seconds left, but that is something that I'm aware of and am working to resolve.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to rebut?
With that, if you are in the institution, you do see how much we do and the important issues that we do discuss on a daily basis. The work goes outside of the Illinois student government. You spend your time where people are usually doing homework, thinking about critical issues on campus and working on that, so.
Anyone else?
And I think you just said if you are in ISG, you do see the work they're doing. I think that might be the problem, because if you're not, I don't think you do. And I think students who aren't in ISG need to be saying that.
Thank you. Any other candidates who wish to speak?
Additionally, I think that it's important to realize that the work that the Illinois student government has done is legitimate. It is vital as well. However, when we propose bills or resolutions, at the end of those are recommendations. We need to move from recommendations to actions.
Any other candidates who wish to speak?
So I agree with you, Alex. You have to move from resolutions and recommendations to actions, and that is the role of the student body president. So it's really important that whoever is president knows the ins and outs of student government, knows how the administration works, and who to talk to rather than being tossed around by administrators and faculty, because that is what happens. So it's really important to know what's going on so that you can go into those actions.
Thank you. Any other candidates who wish to speak?
Okay, I would also like to add that the purpose, they are recommendations, but there are weekly cabinet meetings where they put those recommendations into action, so that is where the action comes in. So.
Any other candidates? We have 30 more seconds.
As a former member of Illinois student government, I'm well aware that after resolutions are passed, they go through to the committee. But what have they done after committee? I've personally witnessed multiple resolutions dying in committees, not being further acted upon and amended. We need to realize that the policies that we do have in place could potentially be beneficial, and instead of trashing them, we should learn how to enhance them.
All right, and with that, the back and forth period for this question has ended, and we'll move on to our next question. Again, I will read the question twice. In your opinion, what is the largest challenge facing students? What would you do in order to combat this? Again, in your opinion, what is the largest challenge facing students? What would you do in order to combat this? Senator Finley.
Okay, so the largest issue facing students, I think that there's so many students that don't feel included on campus, and that has a lot to do with the fact that our statistics at this school are mostly white students and international students, so the marginalized communities on this campus aren't included enough in things. So I think that a big issue is that people don't feel like they have a voice, which is something that me and Arnaldo want to work a lot on, is letting students feel like they do have that voice. And it's not so much as to speaking for students, it's giving them that platform to speak, because just because I would be president doesn't mean that I'm speaking for other people. I want to give those students a chance to speak up and have their voices heard.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Joselis?
I think the number one challenge on everybody's mind facing the students has to be college affordability and campus affordability. At this university, we're already paying in-state alone some of the highest tuition in the Big Ten. I think that's a problem. I think in order to tackle that issue, you have to look at the small things. Looking at stuff like textbook costs, like putting a cap on classroom supply costs, finding cheaper software to use instead of spending $80 on a software that can do the same thing as Compass would when it's free. I think looking at soaring housing costs. The Champaign County Assessor just reassessed multifamily homes in the University District alone, raising property taxes by 200%. My rent went up $1,000, or it will go up $1,000 the next year because of that. I think we need to combat that, obviously at a campus level, but I think we need to bring that to the community too. Let's look at getting more student discounts. I know the iCard right now has a program where you can get a lot of good discounts at a lot of good stores on Green Street. Let's expand that. Let's make every single part of being a student affordable, whether it's parking. In the University District, again, is 50 cents more per hour to park than in downtown Champaign. That's an issue. Let's be part of that conversation and let's make some change.
Thank you. Senator Namick.
Well, I think because our student body is so diverse and vast that there are a lot of problems that are very important. But I think one problem that is extremely important is mental health. And this doesn't necessarily mean actually having a severe mental health illness or issue. It's rather just being able to have support. I feel that a lot of students on campus don't have the resources that they need, whether it be because they're in an underrepresented group or because they're in a field in which a lot of faculty in the counseling center, for example, aren't able to attune to them and able to help them in the way that they need to on an individual basis. So one thing that I really want to do is push the administration to increase funding for the counseling center so that they have more faculty to help students instead of capping the amount of appointments and student visits that they get per day. It's also to make sure and really push that faculty and staff include mental health on their syllabi, for example, and make sure that that's a conversation at the beginning of the class semester so that students know that their professors are there for them and that they know that mental health is an issue. And it's also providing resources to different departments and making sure that certain departments are able to address the needs of their students on an individual basis.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra.
Thank you. I think the biggest issue on our campus is the fact that we consider issues to be just problems, whereas problems are opportunities of growth. And we lack intersectionality across the campus, which has led to segregation and separation, which has also led to the inefficiency of affordability in terms of housing and academics, and the lack of representation, adequate representation at that. We fail to realize that over 90% of our campus is middle class or higher. And socioeconomic plays a big role in terms of education accessibility, health accessibility, and resource accessibility as well. So bridging that gap, it should be our main priority as a student government and should be the main priority of any student body president.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. All right, with that, we'll move into the period of crossfire. I'll start the timer for 4 minutes. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move into our next question. So our next question, again, I'll read it twice, is what makes you stand out from the other candidates? Again, what makes you stand out from the other candidates? Mr. Giselles.
What makes me stand out? I think it's an easy one compared to the people on this stage is I haven't been involved in Illinois student government. I'm a fresh face. I think the majority of the student population who maybe doesn't even know who ISG is or what they do, I think they've seen that Illinois student government right now isn't getting things done, and I think that that's a culture that's been created and been sustained there. Or at least the things that they're getting done aren't meaningful and aren't effective to the student body, because clearly people aren't seeing it. I think me being a fresh face can bring in new ideas and get more people, new people involved. There's not that many people involved in Illinois student government, and I think that me being a fresh face is going to bring new people involved. I think me and my running mate both have political experience. My running mate works for Senator Dick Durbin, working with higher education institutions to actually get things done at a national level. I think with that experience, I think we can bring lobbying efforts to Springfield and bring this campaign to, or bring this university to the forefront of every issue that's being talked about and passed on the floor in the Illinois House of Representatives.
Thank you, Mr. Giselles. Senator Finley.
Okay, when it comes to standing out, I believe that I stand out because of the time commitment that I have to everything that I do. Every semester that I've been on this campus, I have worked my butt off. I have worked 15 to 20 hours a week since I was a freshman just so that I can afford to go here. I have been involved in research since my sophomore year. I have been in the Illinois student government before this year. I was a committee member, and everything that I've done, I've put my everything into, and I've made sure that I don't have time to just, have free time while I'm here. Everything that I do, I'm always working. I'm working hard. In terms of a fresh face in the exec, I think that it's important to distinguish a fresh face in Illinois student government and a fresh face on the exec. I know that a fresh face in the executive is important because it's new ideas and it's a whole new person bringing everything different to the table, but not having experience in something doesn't make somebody qualified. So I just feel like it makes me more qualified that I've had this experience and I do see the problems and I can change the problems that are here.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra.
Thank you. What makes me different is pretty simple, and my entire campaign was based off of it, motivating mass movements. Illinois student government lacks legitimacy, and we as a student government lack legitimacy because we lack a student presence. So obviously I'm focused on the masses rather than internalizing issues and trying to work from the inside out. Additionally, I agree with one of my opponents. Fresh faces are good, and it's important to note that Illinois student government is not our only governance registered student organization on this campus, and leaders can be produced in any avenue in the Illinois student government as well. And I think that my work with our state rep, especially Carol Ammons, and efforts to enhance academic funding is definitely a strategy that I certainly believe that my candidates have lacked.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Senator Namick.
Okay, so I can sit here and tell you guys about all my experience, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on one thing that makes me stand out, and that's that I actually have a platform. Susan and I have spent hours, we've pulled all-nighters, making sure that we have a detailed platform of all the actions and goals and how we're going to tackle issues. And I have yet to see any candidate come out with something like that. One of the things that I believe in is transparency, and in order for the Illinois student government to do its job, to make sure that it represents the students and be transparent, is have goals and talk about things. We all want to work on issues relating to environmental sustainability. We all want to work on issues related to student advocacy. But what are you going to do about issues that are involved in student advocacy? What are you going to do to make sure that the campus is environmentally sustainable? I have yet to see any candidate talk about things like this and any of their campaign efforts or publicized posts. So I think that's what makes me stand out. Susan and I have the passion. We want this position because we want to make this campus better. And for us, it's really concerning because we don't want the Illinois student government to have another year of being inactive per se, or not being able to better represent the student body. So I think that having actual plans is something that's very important and something that we're the only ones that I have yet to see have.
Thank you, Senator. All right, so with that, we'll move into our 4-minute period of crossfire. I'll start the timer. Are there any candidates who wish to speak?
And I'm a very direct and stern individual, so I'll go to name a name, Denise, in all respect. You have mentioned the fact that other candidates lack platforms, and I don't think that's the case. I just think that it's the fact that you have failed to acknowledge other people's platforms that seems to be severely problematic. And just because they haven't publicized it on the internet does not mean that they're not working to communicate it to individuals throughout our campus.
Senator Namick, as your name was mentioned, you get to respond.
Right. So I think that if you're running for president, you should be transparent in what you're doing and what you're going to be doing. So if there's students in the student body that doesn't know your action plans and know what you're doing, and if it's not publicized, then how are they going to be able to differentiate candidates? Because you had mentioned that in the debate earlier. You know, we were all running on similar platforms, but the real question is, what are you going to do about it? You know, I mean.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other candidates who wish to speak? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next question. All right, so we are now out of pre-prepared question, and I have a big stack of audience questions. Thank you all very much for that. I doubt we'll get through this whole stack, but if you do have any additional questions, you can go talk to our associates over at the table there and write down your question. But with that same format, again, for these questions as those that were pre-prepared. And so with that, I'll read the first question. If you were to lose this ticket, do you plan on still being an ISG? Explain why or why not. Again, if you were to lose this election, do you plan on still being an ISG? Explain why or why not. We'll start with Senator Finley.
Yes, I 100% plan on staying in ISG if I lose this ticket, because in the end I still want to make these changes that I'm talking about. I've said this before, but Arnoldo and I have already started working on a lot of the things that are in our platform, a lot of the things that we do want to happen on this campus. So whether it's as a senator or another position in the Illinois student government, I will still 100% put my all into it.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Joselis.
Yeah, I have a passion for a lot of these issues being discussed here today, and I think if I lose, I'm definitely going to get involved in serving these issues. I think over the course of this campaign, I've met a lot of really good people in Illinois student government who are trying to get good things done. And so I think that has opened up an opportunity and opened up, to me, Illinois student government, the idea of Illinois student government being able to do things. And hopefully, whatever candidate gets elected recognizes the problems and often ineffectiveness of Illinois student government and works to change that. And yes, I would happily get involved in Illinois student government.
Thank you, Mr. Joselis. Mr. Sierra.
If I were to lose this election, I would hands down still be involved in, or get back involved with Illinois student government. Sorry for the correction. My first strategy in getting back involved would be rallying allies throughout the registered student organization in order to boost the legitimacy. I'm well aware that I do not need to act as president to enhance our legitimacy as a student government. However, acting as president will ease that process.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Senator Namick.
Yes, if I were to lose, I would still be involved. I've been a senator for the past 2.5 years, and the students that I specifically represent are the students in the biological sciences. And I've been doing a lot of outreach this past year, and I've been talking to so many students that have so many ideas. And actually, so I won't be running for my senator position because I really want to give other students in the biological sciences a chance to be a senator. So I plan on being a part of all the committees that I'm already a part of. I also plan on continuing my role in the UC Faculty Senate as a student representative, as well as making sure that I'm still in contact with faculty and administration on specific problems that I'm currently addressing and want to continue to address.
Thank you, Senator. All right, so with that, we'll move into the period of crossfire. I'll start a 4-minute timer. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we can move on to the next question. All right, the next question is, how do you plan on making Illinois more inclusive for students with disabilities? Again, how do you plan on making Illinois more inclusive for students with disabilities? Mr. Joselis.
Right now, I think this university has done, I think we're one of the leading universities right now in reaching out to students with disabilities. Our DRES program, I think, in my opinion, is doing a pretty phenomenal job. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of students in that community, and I think there are issues that need to be addressed. And I think part of that is obviously listening to those communities, or listening to that community, listening to what things the university as a whole and what things the student population can do as a whole to reach out to them and to make everything more accessible. And I think as president, if I'm elected president, like I said earlier, it's about listening. I want those people in my cabinet. I want those people. I want to have a liaison with DRES, because they have voices that I think aren't always being listened to, and I think we need to be paying attention to that. And we'll work to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Sierra.
In terms of representing students with disabilities, I think the first thing that we need to do is identify those students, student leaders with disabilities. And my strategy, and I've already gone to discuss this, is work with university housing, where a lot of our students with disabilities reside in terms of recruiting, and then offer them a direct line at the table to adequately represent themselves. And as acting student body president, we will be there as a symbol of support.
Thank you. Senator Namick.
So one of the things that I have been concerned with is the fact that DRES, the actual office, is pretty far in terms of where everything is on campus. So I really want to make sure that students are able to access the DRES office in and of itself, whether that be through transportation or, outreach programs and events. The other thing that my committee, the Committee on Diversity, my committee and I have been discussing is every building on campus by federal law needs to be accessible to all students. However, there are buildings that are very run down, or there are buildings where, things like ramps and elevators, it's hard to find them. So I really want to make sure that these things are being brought to the attention of administration and making sure that students know where they can go in certain buildings. The other thing I want to address is it's not just students with physical disabilities. There are students with disabilities that are cognitive or not seen. So I really want to make sure that those students' voices are also being heard and see what kind of things that they're dealing with, whether it be the simple addressing of the fact that disabilities aren't just physical disabilities, or making sure that professors are more accommodating to those students.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Finley.
I too believe that working with DRES is a huge thing, because as with any organization, working with current efforts that are going on and seeing what you can do to improve them is the biggest thing. In terms of accessibility, I too agree that DRES is too far away, because every day that I'm walking to work, I have to pass it, and it's like really far from pretty much anything on campus, and there's not a bus that even goes directly there, so I find that extremely troubling. And when it comes to like ramps and stuff on campus, that's the same thing that I was thinking of, because also like there were issues with VO rides blocking ramps and things that they use to get places, and with bad weather, those things aren't taken care of enough. So just trying to make sure that these accommodations are there for them.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we'll move into the 4-minute period of back and forth. I'll start the time. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move into our next question. All right, before asking this question, I'd just like to give a content warning for sexual violence. So if, again, a content warning for sexual violence before asking this question. All right. So the question is, what is your definition of rape culture, and what have you done to fight it? Again, what is your definition of rape culture, and what have you done to fight it? Our first speaker will be Senator Finley.
Yeah, so rape culture is the culture that we live in now, which is extremely unfortunate. It mostly happens on college campuses. It's mostly people that you know, and it mostly happens at parties when people are intoxicated. In terms of our platform for sexual assault, I mentioned this in the previous debate, but we want to implement eye care workshops in various RSOs so that RSOs can learn together and on an individual basis how they could intervene if they were in a situation where sexual assault looked like it was about to happen or looked like something was happening. And if somebody was too uncomfortable to attend that information session, as came up in the Illinois Student Government on the Floor, it is definitely 100% okay that not everybody has to attend it, but I do think that people do need to be a lot more aware of what is going on this campus and how they can help prevent it. And another thing is, we get so many emails about people getting sexually assaulted on this campus. It's so scary to be a girl student on this campus and get an email that there was a frat party last night and a girl was raped there. So hearing these things and seeing these things shows that we need a change.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Giselles.
I think rape culture is a culture of normalizing sexual assault, and it's a culture of objectifying women. And I think it is abhorrent. And I think that the university has implemented measures to try and respond to that, like Haven and like FICARE. I think we can do more. I think that there can be a continuing education, not just once freshman year, but as you move on your university, mandatory for all students. I think a lot of RSOs and a lot of fraternities and sororities have taken this into their own hands by implementing sexual assault prevention training, which I think is a step in the right direction. I think we need to enhance these programs to make sure they're getting to people. And we need to stop normalizing this issue and stop stigmatizing it. It is an issue that is widespread on every campus in this country, and it needs to stop. I think we need to make authority figures. I think we need to make people more comfortable in reaching out to authority figures like their RA, like the police, so we can hold these people accountable. I also think a step we want to take to ensure student safety is we want to put more blue emergency phones on off-campus locations. I've talked to many friends who live past First Street, and I don't know, if you're walking back from the bars, I wouldn't be super comfortable doing that. And I think we need to work with the city of Champaign and the city of Urbana to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Giselles. Just a reminder to candidates, the question is the definition and then what have you done to fight it? With that, Senator Namick.
So to me, rape culture on this campus is having students be sexually assaulted or harassed. It's students having to deal with this and not being able to talk to people. It's them being scared to get help. It's having events like Unofficial, and when an Unofficial comes out, the norm is to give out hotlines for if you've been sexually harassed or assaulted, rather than just focusing on hotlines such as when you're dealing with alcohol poisoning or being passed out. It's being, at home at 1 a.m. and hearing a scream outside and not knowing if, something's going on or if something's dangerous, or, it's walking at dark and feeling threatened and not feeling safe. And it's a big issue on campus, and it also happens within the classroom too. So as a senator, there have been many cases on sexual assault and harassment on campus, and one thing specifically that has been big this year is the case against Professor Kassan, who sexually harassed and assaulted several faculty as well as students. And this happened not recently, but it only came to light recently because of things not being addressed and administration not knowing about it, or knowing about it and not telling the student body. So how are students supposed to feel safe on campus? So as a student senator, I've been working hard to make sure that things like this are not going under the covers, and that they're still being on the front plate of administration to make sure things are being tackled.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra.
I believe rape culture can be encompassed in a variety of terms, especially bystanders, by not intervening, the alleged attacker, the victim, the failure to report, the failure to inform by the university, and also the normalizing of rape culture. The biggest thing is when we doubt individuals, that contributes to rape culture. Despite the circumstances and despite the facts, we discourage individuals to report. And that is how we actually enhance rape culture, when we really need to decrease it. By believing word of mouth, no matter your personal beliefs and no matter the facts, we should never ridicule individuals for reporting sexual assault. I personally have worked to combat rape culture. Currently, I serve as a residential advisor in Lincoln Avenue residence halls. where we serve as mandated reporters and receive extensive resource training in terms of where to point individuals who say that they have been a victim of sexual assault. And then in my youth as well, I'm serving on the Youth Advisory Council to combat sex assault, sexual transmitted infections, live teen pregnancies as well. And that was for my entire Peoria County, which encompassed several cities and towns.
Hey, Mr. Sierra. All right, so with that, we will move into the period of back and forth. I'll start a 4-minute timer. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to our next question. Before we read the next audience question, again, same content warning for sexual assault. This question is, how do you hope, looking inward, how do you hope to address internal issues of sexual assault or misconduct within the Illinois student government? What policies should be put in place? Again, how do you hope to address internal issues of sexual misconduct within ISG? What policies should be put in place? Mr. Sierra.
I certainly believe that we should amplify the policies within Illinois student government that are already in place. I think the fact that we have, in this question, I believe, separated Illinois student government from the entire student body is very problematic. So I certainly believe that all individuals in Illinois student government should be treated just as any individual who has either made the accusation or has been accused of doing sexual assault. In terms of policies that should be in place, I think the policies that we already have as a university should just be upheld. There's no point in fixing something that isn't broken, but there is a point of fixing something that needs to be enhanced.
Thank you. Mr. Droselis?
Yeah, I think being in Illinois student government, you're inherently a leader, and I think these leaders need to be held to a higher standard. I think ISG has worked to implement sexual assault prevention training, which is a step in the right direction. I think we need to implement a zero tolerance policy. I think there should be investigations into allegations, but, I have to say, even allegations, I don't have any friends who have allegations. I think that, it's an issue, and if you're acting in the right way, these things won't happen. And I think that enhancing these sexual assault prevention trainings and expanding them to happen more often, that's what needs to happen. We need to raise the awareness of the issue, and we need to expand the curriculum to be engaging and mandatory. Yeah.
Thank you. Senator Namick.
Okay, so in terms of internal issues within the Illinois student government, there's this thing on campus called iCare, which is a workshop that deals with sexual assault and harassment. So recently we've been discussing as a student government the implementation of having an iCare workshop for all senators, and as a way to make sure that our student senators are more aware of the issue, and they're constantly being reminded, because as you all know, we all go through FICARE as an incoming transfer student or a freshman. Obviously, the education doesn't stop there. And we also, in the student government, we have a sexual assault and harassment task force, prevention task force, excuse me. And so making sure that they have all the resources and support that they need, making sure that whatever they're doing is being backed by the entire student government. And another issue is holding all senators accountable. So if something does happen internally within the student government, making sure that punishment and the right steps are being taken to address the issue, and make sure that everyone in the student government, as well as students coming to the student government public meetings, making sure that they all feel safe and comfortable. It's to make sure that the space is welcoming to all students.
Thank you. Senator Finley.
Because of the important topic of sexual assault, I do have to reiterate the zero tolerance policy, and that is a huge thing. Senators should be held accountable. It should not be tolerated. If there's any talk of something happening, we need to first and foremost make sure that the survivor in the situation feels safe, and we need to make sure that that happens by not letting that person still have that platform and have that voice and show that they have any type of power after doing something like that. With that being said, I also agree with the iCare workshop thing. I was a sponsor on the resolution for it. I believe that it would be a great opportunity for ISG to learn about it together and learn together how we can be bystanders and how we can see something like this happening, because learning that as an organization is very important. And with the sexual assault prevention department in ISG, I have also spoken with Alice, who's one of the co-chairs, about a lot of the issues that they discuss. I've attended a couple meetings, and I would work with them.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we'll move into the 4-minute period of crossfire. I'll start a 4-minute timer. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? Mr. Sierra.
I think that it's important, and I just want to clarify this, because when some of the other candidates stated it, I kind of was caught off guard by it. But sexual assault policies that are in place are zero tolerance policies. That's all. There is no tolerance there in terms of like sexual assault prevention policies. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you. Any other candidates who wish to speak?
Yes, I would love to speak on that. So they say it's zero tolerance, but that doesn't mean that when somebody comes to them saying that they were sexually assaulted, that it gets taken care of and gets handled correctly. So zero tolerance is what they say, but that's not what they do. So that's a very important distinction to make.
Thank you, Senator Finley. Any other candidates who wish to speak?
Me.
Mr. Sierra?
And I support that. And I definitely think that goes back to my previous point of there are policies in place. We just need to work on legitimizing and enhancing those policies rather than trying to replace them with new ones that will take time getting off the ground, more than a year as serving as president.
Thank you. Any other candidates who wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll move into our next question. Our next question is, what is your stance on the university mascot, especially in light of the Alma Mater referendum? Again, what is your stance on the university mascot, especially in light of the Alma Mater referendum? Our first speaker will be Senator Finley.
Okay, so I was actually a sponsor on the Alma Mater resolution, and it's going on the ballot tomorrow, and I'm super excited for it. I think it's awesome. Look at Anna over there wearing the costume. It is so amazing. I 100% think that we need a new mascot because the chief is racist, and it's over, and it's done, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I think that an otter is so unproblematic and harmless. Like, who doesn't want an otter to represent their school? I think it's an awesome idea, and I support it.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra.
To keep it short and brief, I also stand with Senator Finley. I think this is something that all candidates would agree on. The otter is the way to go. I honestly love it, to be honest. I think that and I agree with Finley, that we need to move on from the Native American imagery, especially because by continuing to talk about it, we're basically saying that this is the only issue that Native American indigenous students face, and it's not.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Senator Namick.
Yeah, pretty much the same as the other two candidates have said. The chief is racist. It should have been gone a long time ago. Unfortunately, it still appears. I do like the otter as well, the Alma Otter. However, I do believe that representation is also important, and making sure that there is a mascot that a lot of students do have support behind, which is great because that's why we have the referendum and we have student input. But yeah, I think we do need a new mascot because that is a way that students do show pride, because we are a Big Ten school, and a lot of the ways in which we show our school spirit is through sports and through a sort of identification. And through that identification, we do need a new mascot, or else the chief will continue to show up.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Joselis.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that all the candidates on the stage agree about the racist symbol as the chief. I think it's been gone for 12 years and it's not coming back. In regards to Alma Mater, I've talked to a lot of students about it, and look, I think it's important to listen to them, and I haven't heard an overwhelming positive feedback. I am excited to see the referendum results. I think we can do better when it comes to a mascot, but like I said, I'm excited to see the results of the referendum and hear the student voice.
All right, with that, we'll move into a period of crossfire. 4 minutes again. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? Yes, question?
Is this cross-firing for all candidates, or can you add on?
Yeah, you can go ahead and add on. You can do whatever you
Okay.
want with your 30 seconds, yes.
Okay. No, I just.
Okay. All right. Any candidates who wish to speak?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our next question. All right, the next question is, what is your plan to advocate for graduate students? Have you advocated for graduate students in the past? Again, what is your plan to advocate for graduate students? Have you advocated for graduate students in the past? Our first speaker is Senator Finley.
Yeah, so the GEO strike that happened last semester, I was 100% on board with that. I know that the grad students don't get all of the benefits that they should be because they are a very important asset to our education. And so I definitely want to work with GEO if I'm president because I know that they are an important voice of the students. There aren't as many grad students who apply into ISG, and I would also want to change that to encourage them to have their voice be heard in the Illinois student government because I do know they are a very important asset to this institution.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Namick.
Okay, so I fully support grad students, and because a lot of my classes, especially because I am majoring in Spanish, a lot of my classes are taught by grad students. So when the GEO strike happened last year, for me, that was a no-brainer. Without hesitating, I was there outside with my fellow grad students picketing in every single hour that I had. So, and that also meant taking like 10 cough drops because I couldn't speak after every day. And making sure that as an undergrad, I'm there to support grad students in anything that they want to do because it's important to realize that, you know, we have over 48,000 students on campus, and a lot of those students are grad students. And coming from a biology background, it's also important to note that there are grad students that don't feel safe, that didn't feel safe picketing and joining the GEO strike because of fear of going behind on their research or not getting the benefits that they were receiving at the time. So making sure that every grad student who is behind GEO, for example, but are unable to show that, making sure that they know that they have support, making sure that whatever troubles they're having, that those are addressed, and that we as a student government are able to work with faculty and administration to make sure that they're feeling safe and included.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Sierra.
I certainly stand behind the GEO. As my time is sitting as an executive assistant to our former student body president, ISG stood behind the GEO, and I still do as well. I have a saying, without grads, there'll be no class. So that's just it is what it is. In terms of what I would like to do, I've already been working with the GEO to ensure that graduate Senate seats are, bless you, but graduate Senate seats are filled in the future. And then additionally working with international grad students as well, because as you all know, some individuals unintentionally overstay their visas. And once their visas are expired, there are some flaws in the contract that they have that don't protect those students. So I definitely want to work with them in terms of making sure international grad students are protected.
Thank you. Mr. Droselis.
I agree with the other candidates, and I think there is almost a gap between the undergraduate students and the graduate students. I think staying in touch with student leaders that are graduate students and staying in touch with GEO and having a liaison to GEO is important. I think listening to them and their needs is the way to go. Like Mr. Sierra pointed out, I think it is vitally important to be, like I said, identifying those student leaders, but reaching out to them to fill the Senate positions in Illinois student government because they do have a large voice, and I think although a lot of graduate students might be busy with other things and research and teaching in a lot of cases, I think they can and should have a powerful voice in Illinois student government, and I want to reach out to them. I will reach out to them and get them involved.
All right, thank you, candidates. So that, again, will move into our period of crossfire. I'll start a 4-minute timer. Are there any candidates who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move right along into our next question. All right, our next question is, How will you promote an inclusive environment in ISG? How will you personally foster a positive and supportive community atmosphere? Again, how will you promote an inclusive environment in ISG? How will you personally foster a positive and supportive community atmosphere? Our first speaker will be Mr. Sierra.
I think the main thing that we need to do in terms of promoting an inclusive environment is, once again, identifying our leaders throughout the university. I think we need to adapt policies that other student governments have taken locally outside of the Big Ten. For example, I've already been working with Illinois State student governance system, and the way that they make sure that students are adequately represented is they select representatives from their residence halls, which I think is a pretty good strategy overall. In addition to that, I think that we need to partner with our cultural houses and the student leaderships that we have, especially in the Iconberry Commons area through our leadership suite and the living learning communities such as the environmental sustainability, women in STEM, honor society, so on and so forth. So overall, I think we need to partner with our university housing in order to identify student leaders who are not aware of ISG and provide them opportunities to get involved.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Mr. Joselis.
Yeah, I think in order to make Illinois student government more inclusive, I think it's getting people involved. One, I think I have a lot of connections not being involved in Illinois student government with student leaders who haven't been involved. I want to get them involved. I think personally, I think you need to make it known that this is an environment that is open to new ideas, an environment that wants to foster the types of conversation that needs to be needed to improve on resolutions and improve on debates. I think I'm an approachable guy, a nice enough guy who could lend a hand in helping people feel included with their ideas. Again, another theme of my campaign, we got to listen to these people. We got to listen, and in listening, you include people. I think another thing is, I've had conversations with numerous senators, one specifically who's been a senator for almost a year now and hasn't introduced any resolutions because she thinks they're going to get shot down too quick. I don't want that to be an environment. I wouldn't want to be in that environment. So if we want to keep if we want to increase retention rates for senators especially, I think it's important that we foster an environment where people aren't afraid to let their voice be heard and everyone feels free to speak out and say what they got to say.
Thank you. Senator Namick.
Okay, so as part of the Illinois student government, I pretty much agree with what previous candidates have said. The thing that I want to do is have RSO or student organization liaisons within the student government and have it an official position so that student organizations do have a voice in the student government. Even though the Illinois student government does have, their meetings are public and anyone can come and speak, I realize that the Illinois student government can be more of a toxic environment. So I want to make sure that student organizations do have a voice in an official capacity. The other thing is, I, as a student government, believe that after elections, that shouldn't be the last that student organizations hear of the candidates. So one thing that I want to do, and I will continue to do, is have monthly meetings and, go back to the student organizations that I've talked to before that I haven't talked to yet and really see what they're doing. What are they doing on campus? How can we as a student government help those student organizations reach their goals and accomplishments? So those are some things that I really want to implement.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Senator Finley.
Something I know that was brought up at a Senate meeting a couple weeks ago regarding the ABTS conference that they had just gone to was having students from various cultural houses have seats in the Illinois student government, and me and Arnaldo are sitting next to each other in Senate. We're like, this is a great idea. So that's something that we definitely would want to work on, is having the cultural houses have a voice in ISG, not just going to talk to them and not just having conversations, but letting them have a a seat in Senate and have their voices heard just for their cultural house. I think that would be very important. And another thing is that being president, it's very important to listen to all perspectives and hear out all perspectives of an issue. I know that a lot of times in an organization, everybody feels a certain way about an issue, and so there are a lot of people who don't feel comfortable to speak up, and they don't feel comfortable to have their voice heard. And so I want it to be more of a safe space for students to talk about how they feel about an issue where they're not going to be attacked right away, and where every perspective is 100% open.
Thank you, Senator. All right, with that, we'll move into our period of crossfire. I'll start a timer. Any candidates who wish to speak? Mr. Sierra.
Once again, very direct and very stern. It just caught my attention when presidential candidate Denise mentioned students avoiding ISG due to the toxic environment. I think that's something that should be duly noted, especially considering the fact that Denise as well as Marissa have been in this environment. But I want to strongly encourage all of us, no matter who wins, to overcome that toxic environment and make a strong and inclusive environment for all students.
All right, as we've had the names of 2 candidates mentioned, next speaker will be Senator Namick.
Okay, yeah. So I've been listening to students. I've been talking to students that aren't a part of the Illinois student government, and that's the thing that I've been hearing a lot. So when I say that the Illinois student government is toxic, it's not just me observing things, but it's also me listening and talking to students. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick. The other thing is, yes, I am aware of the issue. The thing is, with the Illinois student government, they are open, and students, I'm out of time.
Thank you. Senator Finley, do you wish to respond?
Yeah, so I think that toxic can be a strong word. I could see where it comes from, but that just goes back to what I was saying earlier with just the cliquey environment. Like, it feels like a friend group that isn't open to a lot of things, and I do know that I've been a part of a lot of these cliques, and these people are my friends, and so I'm not at all downing it. I just know that we can all do better.
Thank you, Senator. Any other candidates wish to speak? Mr.
Yeah, and I commend Mr. Sierra on his remarks. You know, I think, Marissa, I think that, I mean, you mentioned the cliques and an almost inclusive and insular environment. And, I mean, I don't think we can avoid that. The 2 senators on the stage have been in that environment for 2 years. And I have to ask, if you guys have been here for 2 years, you know, why isn't that changing? Are you working to make that change? And will you work to make that change if you're elected?
Any other candidates who wish to speak? Senator Namick?
So actually, we've actually improved a lot. And if you actually came to student government, and if you were really interested in this position and wanted to be involved in it, you would see it. But the last 2 years ago, it was way more toxic than it was than it is this year. It's a work in progress. And that's one of the reasons why I want to implement RSO liaisons, student organization liaisons, in an official capacity, so that they're able to voice their concerns, not just in public comment. So I do realize that it is an issue.
All right. Any other candidates who wish to speak?
Okay. Go ahead, after you.
All right, Senator Finley.
Yeah, so I completely understand where you're coming from. I don't want to think that I am the person who's causing the problem, and I know that there are ways to help decrease the problem, and the toxic. Okay, I'm not even going to try to say that word, but the environment being toxic, again, has a lot to do with the fact that we're not all, okay, he's waving at something. Okay. It doesn't have as much to do with the fact that we are causing a problem in student government. We just know that.
All right. With that, this crossfire has expired. And with apologies to everyone else who submitted questions that we didn't get to tonight, we're now going to move into closing statements. Again, these are 3 minutes, and we'll begin with Mr. Joselis.
Again, I want to thank CSAC and ISG and everyone in the audience for coming out on a cold Tuesday night. I think right now the Illinois student government is a club. It's not a representative government organization. I'm running to be president of the student body, not the president of a club. I think all the candidates should be willing to acknowledge the ineffectiveness of the Illinois student government. I think to address the discussion of me not being involved in Illinois student government, yes, I'm not in Illinois student government. Let me be clear, that is why I'm here. That is the point. I represent change, change that all the candidates here agree upon. I'm here as a fresh face committed to the issues facing the student body. I'm aware of the change the student body wants, and I'm ready to implement, and I'm ready to uplift those student voices throughout the university. Voices advocating for environmental sustainability, campus affordability, student safety, and other underrepresented issues that we don't even know about yet. I'm going to get other people involved to figure out those issues, identify them, and bring their voice to the table. I want to mobilize the students like me who haven't been involved, who are opinionated, want to make change, recognize the issues at hand, but haven't yet had a proper outlet to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Droselis. Senator Namick.
So the Illinois student government is the first place that faculty, staff, and administration goes to when asking for opinions on the student body and what the student thinks on certain issues. So the student government has been effective, actually, and it has passed so many resolutions and has done so many things within the past couple years. But the issue is making sure that the student body knows about these things. And that's something that I really want to highlight and bring into this position. I want students to know that the Illinois student government is there for them, that the student government is there so that students feel empowered. Because without an active and empowered student body, we as a student government, we as a student body can't tackle issues and we can't do things on campus because the administration, believe it or not, unfortunately, likes to ignore students sometimes, and they don't value the student opinion and thoughts as much. So that's something that I really want to bring in this position. I have detailed platform points and actions and goals that I want to do, and I am currently doing things that I will continue to do so, regardless of what the election results concur with. And I do just want to close off on the point that it is you and I for U of I. It's not just me. It's not just Susan. We're not running for this position just for the position and for the power. We really are concerned with the administration, and we're concerned that the Illinois student government won't be as effective as it could be, or it may even go back. So we really want to work with students and make sure that this campus is safe, comfortable, inclusive for all, and that students that come here feel happy, that they are proud to be an Illini, and that they are able to rep their school and have that good, positive vibe from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Namick. Mr. Sierra.
First, I would like to thank you all for having me tonight. Thank you all for coming out. Congratulations on all the candidates on a successful debate night. It actually went really well. With that being said, once again, we all have similar platforms. We're all advocating for a new mascot. We're all shifting toward environmental sustainability. We're all driving to end a recycle system of representation. We're all pushing for an adequate system of democracy and representation as well. But what I would say is, once again, focus on what differs among candidates. And with me, I would say that I'm sternly focused on mobilizing the masses, hence my motto, motivating mass movements. The legitimacy comes with the masses. The masses is a student body, whether they're graduate, or undergraduate, and it also encompasses faculty, university administration, and agents of the university as well. If you would like to know more about my platform in a more detailed manner, if you feel if it's inaccurate or incomplete, feel free to come ask me about it at any point in time. And I strongly encourage all of you to get out and vote.
Thank you, Mr. Sierra. And finally, Senator Finley.
Yeah, so I would like to emphasize that Arnaldo and I are extremely passionate about these critical issues that are on our platform, and I would also like to use my closing statement to redeem myself for freezing up during my opening statement. So we do have a very detailed platform on things that we really do want to do, and this includes, with sexual assault prevention and awareness, the eye care workshops that I previously brought up, working with the sexual assault prevention department. For mental health awareness, we want more resources coming from ISG. We want to work with the counseling center on online appointments and funding more counselors so that we can have more access to students. For environmental protection, we do want to implement take out boxes in the dining halls, and that's something that we've already started working on. We promote sustainability, and we are with the fossil fuel divestment movement. For diversity and inclusion, we plan on working with the cultural houses. We've already discussed a lot of things with the cultural houses. We want to advocate for the LGBTQ plus community and work with the Women's Resource Center. Along with that, for academic affordability, we advocate for more online resources for students and more scholarships for minority students, because that is a huge problem as to why we don't have a lot of marginalized communities on this campus in the first place. And lastly, to end, I would like to applaud all of the candidates here, because I know that campaigning and putting all of this work in takes a huge toll on your mental health and all of the work that we are all putting in. So I just want to thank you all.
All right, so with that, we will conclude tonight's student government presidential debate. I'd just like to thank all of you for coming out and apologize again to any of you whose question didn't get asked tonight, but I'm sure, and I know I'm volunteering their time for them, but I'm sure if you have pressing questions, the candidates would be more than happy to discuss them with you. With that, another reminder that the ballot goes live tonight at midnight, so check your emails, go to vote.illinois.edu, and if you have any issues, you can direct those to our campus Student Election Commission, and they'll be happy to take care of that. So with that, thank you again for coming out, and have a good night.